Hey, this is Pamela Schneider. I'm the retail editor for Blue Book Services, and this is the Produce Reporter Week in Review. Greg, one of my favorite GIF, whatever you want to call it, comments, replies, is one that I think elder millennial Gen X people would know. It would be Iago from Aladdin, where he says, "I think I'm going to have a heart attack and die from not surprise." And if you've seen Aladdin, I mean, you know what we're talking about. One of the articles we had this week was about a lawsuit against Dollar General. And what has been my biggest worry as Dollar General gets more into the produce gig?
I knew as soon as I saw that this would be something you'd want to talk about, because basically it confirms some of the things that you've talked about being concerned about, and not just with Dollar General, with any discount grocer that's making a bigger push into fresh. There is a skill set and an amount of labor that has to go along with it in order to make it decent. And yeah, I've seen the transformation at my local Aldi from 5 years ago to today, where they've taken, a much more serious step toward improving and rotating the produce department and not just putting berries out on the floor, which is what they did, and they would last a day at your house. So this Dollar General one, it was not very flattering to Dollar General as I read through it.
So I've been one of the biggest proponents of Dollar General expanding fresh produce. I think it has a tremendous potential to bring fruits and vegetables to communities that need it most. Dollar General has the widest reach in the country. They've got 18,000 stores, and they are looking at putting produce in half of them over the next couple of years. But the thing that I've always worried about is you can't have nice things if you don't take care of them. And Dollar General has one of the lowest labor models out there. They put up a box. It's oftentimes a sheet metal box. They just spawn in a neighborhood in days and get 1 to 2 people working there. And there have been, over the last couple of years, and especially on social media, where people will walk through a store and there's nobody manning the till. There's inventory sitting around, jumbling up the aisles. Stuff is not taken care of, and Dollar General is like, "Oh, no, this is fine. The isolated incidents." Well, apparently it's happening often enough that there is a class action lawsuit on behalf of shareholders saying that mismanagement has affected shareholder value, because Dollar General is saying things are great when actually they've got huge inventory problems. And then, according to this, it's one of those news releases that you get from basically a corporate ambulance chaser, because they're just trying to get you to sign up for their class action. And it says stores were chronically understaffed and suffering from logistical and inventory management problems, which left them with tens of millions of dollars worth of outdated and unwanted inventory. And then the other part of the lawsuit is that they've been, like, judges have found in favor of the plaintiffs on these. They've been found to being chronically overcharging for items, because something will be marked on the shelf one price and then it rings up as another price. And that can be because of software issues, but it also can be because they don't have the labor in the stores to change the signs on the shelves.
Would you
So
consider it a virtually impossible situation as the
it is,
lawsuits?
it is a virtually impossible situation if you want to run a store with 2 people working, or however many. Oftentimes there's only 1 person working. Ask any produce manager, ask any store director in any of grocery what their biggest concern is. And it's not the shrink, and it's not whatever, it's labor. Do they have enough labor hours to handle what they need to handle, especially in something as hands-on as produce? You can't just throw a box of crackers, on the shelf and forget about it. The produce doesn't work like that. You have to rotate it, or you're coming up on moldy whatever and mushy whatever, and it doesn't work.
Isn't a lot of Dollar General's produce push into non-refrigerated items? So that
So if you've
relieves
seen
some of that pressure.
some of the pressure is relieved, but even then, I mean, I have this old adage with my kids. Like my biggest life advice is if something smells weird in your kitchen, look for the potatoes. Because you've lost a potato somewhere. So even the hardiest fruits and vegetables can go bad, and you will have a bad experience with a bag of apples that has been left out at ambient temperature for too long. Or, I mean, everybody knows what that smell is when the oranges are starting if one of them's gone mushy, it makes the whole thing stink. But if you've seen a typical produce department at a Dollar General, it is generally like one cooler rack that's going to have bagged salads, maybe some fresh cuts, very typical stuff. We're not looking for premium stuff. We're not looking for things like pomegranate arls or something like that. We're looking for the best sellers. So grapes, pineapple, fresh cut apples, perhaps, bagged salad for sure. And then it's going to have about 10 feet usually, or maybe a little bit more depending on demand, of ambient temperature fruits and vegetables, typically packaged. I don't think very much of it is sold by the piece. It's all sold, they're trying to sell it bagged or packaged so that they don't have to worry about individual potatoes or individual apples or things like that. So generally has decent shelf life, but they're not going to skip having bagged salad. That's one of the biggest sellers in the produce department. So even if it is like the most shelf life in the world, you still got to take care of it. You still have people dropping things. You still have the typical problems that even like a gas station has to deal with when they have fruits and vegetables on the shelf. Or even put it in like what's going on right now with cantaloupe. What if they have a recall? Do they have enough knowledge, manpower, time to go out and make sure that they don't have fresh cut cantaloupe in their cooler case? That is part of the recall. Do the people have access to computers to be able to get alert emails to pull that stuff in a timely fashion? A lot of issues happen when you don't adequately staff a produce department.
Now, the overpricing thing didn't really have to do with produce, though, right?
Not that I know of. Produce has such dynamic pricing that I don't know that it caused any issues. I do note that in the areas where they had judgments against them, the judgment awards, usually millions of dollars, have been going to food banks. So I thought that was interesting. But yeah, there's not any concrete evidence that it's in the fresh produce department. One would guess that it could happen there as well. But I honestly don't know.
Well, you mentioned cantaloupes. We have to talk about that because the recall is ongoing, and we had our first lawsuit. And the only thing surprising, it wasn't surprising that there was a lawsuit, considering that there are 2 deaths that are known of in the United States and well over 100 sicknesses. It wasn't by Marlar's firm, Bill Marlar's firm, who usually brings those up, and he sent out a release about it that we talked about before. It was this firm that I never heard of, and they're not even representing one of the people who's died or the families. It's actually a sick kid, but they spelled out the case, and it's fairly, I mean, it's pretty typical lawsuit type stuff. I mean, they touted themselves as the first because I'm sure there will be more.
Yeah, I'm sure there will be more. Anytime and I think that they've probably established at least in food safety in the US, they've established a little bit of legal precedence with trying to assign negligence on behalf of anybody in the food chain who has handled this are somehow liable in some way, especially as we go through and if we don't find a pinpointed exact source, we do have like an idea of where it came from. But we've had a couple of different developments in the case this week. The Fresh Produce Association of the Americas, probably in response to Mr. Marler's, hey, we should shut down Mexican imports. They came out with a statement talking about all of the safety measures that growers are doing in Mexico. But then we also had an article from Richard Smoley, who talked to an expert about how impossible it is to guarantee that cantaloupe is safe.
Yeah, he talked to Timothy Litton, who's a law professor and wrote a food safety book that we've written about here. And Mr. Litton's comments are not particularly optimistic for the industry. I mean, one of his quotes was, "There's only so much you can do for these melons." Basically, he's saying that the whole water situation is a big problem, and just like the leafy greens marketing agreement, they've been pointing to cattle operations being too close to fields and the growing regions, that like that's the biggest problem. But it's one thing to get FDA and CDC on your side about identifying some of the problems and helping the industry solve some of those. But this one involves the cattle industry and taking on another industry that, they're not going to voluntarily admit responsibility, and all those landowners and herd owners are not going to eagerly change their spots, which they've probably had for generations. So it's the solution is not nearby, unfortunately.
Yeah, and there's not really a way for people to go, well, that's just the risk you're going to have to take. That nobody's going to go there. That's not the attitude that food safety in the United States is willing to put forward. That's just not how this works. And there are a lot of people dedicated to trying to solve these issues. And of course, it's nothing's easy when we're talking about this stuff.
Oishi is the vertical farmer who has super fancy high premium products, and you've had and TikToked about their strawberries, and now it's a tomato that's also very expensive, and it's sold in Whole Foods, so buyers there already know what they're getting into when they walk in the door.
This is $10 for 11 teeny tiny tomatoes, and let me tell you, I have had some really great tomatoes. I could walk into pretty much any grocery store in the country and pick up a package of amazing tomatoes. I've got another video coming out in a couple of days about, Pure Flavor has that new tiki tomato. We did some fun stuff with it. That every single tomato grower has some kind of amazing tomato, and they're all good. I've got my favorites. Nature Fresh has the heroes. Those are the umami tomatoes. Mastronardi's got the sugar bombs. I love those. There's the lollipop ones. There's another one. I can't. There's too many to name. So for Oishi, which I tried their fancy strawberries, I TikToked about them. They're pretty good, but I'm gonna be honest. I've had better. And I paid a lot less for them. And so for them to come out with a super premium tomato, I cannot imagine how it could be any better than what's out there on the market. And I guess I'm going to have to stalk Whole Foods to see if I can get my hands on one of them, because how can it be that good? How can it be $1 per tiny tomato good?
Well, first you'll have to reach out and see if they'll mail you some.
Right. I know. I didn't get anywhere with the tomatoes on that one. With the strawberries on that one. So I'm a produce influencer, but I don't have that much influence, I guess. It was a humbling experience. But so the whole idea of this speaks to a different aspect of produce that is just fascinating and is typically, and Oishi is backed by Japanese capital. So it is not uncommon in especially Korea and Japan to have ultra super mega premium fruits and vegetables that are handcrafted, individually packaged, lovingly packaged in these little clamshells that have a little pillow for them to sit on, like $10,000 grapes.
Well, they
Or
used to have the little watermelon grown in a box too.
right, yeah. So they have that kind of stuff. So that is something that is just now kind of coming to the US. I've seen, like, if you go once in a while, I'll see like, $20 a pound cherries or something like that. So the thing that has to come with everything like this is the why. Why do I want to try a $50 pink pineapple? Why is a $15 Azorean pineapple any better than any other ones of them? So it's really on both the retailer and the supplier to craft the story to get somebody to buy one of these things, because it's got to be a pretty good story for someone to open their wallet like that.
Well, it would be amazing on a charcuterie board when you're entertaining holiday guests.
Yeah, I mean, I could see why somebody would want to do that. We said when we tried their strawberries, which we found at HEB Central Market, promoted them online. My husband saw the post, actually was like, "Hey, have you heard of these strawberries?" I'm like, "Actually, they used to cost $50 and now they're saying 20." And then when I bought them, they rang up for 15, and the cashier was like, "Are you sure you want these? They're $15." And I was like, "Give me two." So my friend and I tried them, and we were like, this is not like a put in your kid's lunchbox strawberry. This is a strawberry that you sit around and you try with some kind of bubbly, tasty beverage and really sit back and enjoy the experience of it. So it's not like an everyday kind of thing, but I really need to hear a story about it. I really need to be able to talk about what this is and why this is. And there's got to be plenty of information to go with that, whether it's done online, or I even just talked about this with my good friend Lori Taylor, talking about selling direct on TikTok. Would it be something like that where it would be worth it to do direct to consumer on the TikTok shop or something like that? So there's a lot of opportunities for items like this. It's just, boy, that is some selling that is going to happen. You have to be a merchant to move that stuff and not just a produce stacker, and definitely wouldn't work out at Dollar General.
No, but they're growing it in a vertical farm just outside of New York City. So you've got an access to a 20 plus million person market there that you can say it's even locally grown.
Yeah, I mean, there are opportunities. There's a story there. You just have to be a very compelling storyteller to get someone to open their wallet for something like that when they can already go in the store and get some pretty fantastic tomatoes already. So I'll have to see. I'm from Missouri. You'd have to show me. Right? That's the motto of the state of Missouri. Well, on that note, that's it for the Produce Reporter Week in Review. If you are not getting the Produce Reporter newsletter, you need to go to producebluebook.com and sign up. $10 tomatoes. Like, seriously.